Hello and welcome to Your Individual Wedding, the wedding podcast that helps you feel seen and celebrated as you plan a day as unique as you are. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of our wonderful podcast. We're joined by the lovely Rachel from Wedology today. Hello Rachel.
Hello.
How are you? Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my absolute pleasure. I'm quite thrilled that you've asked me.
Cool. Well, we're thrilled you're here. So we're going to get straight in with some questions, and hopefully by answering those questions, our viewers are going to find out all about you and they're going to learn lots of wedding tips for their big day. So are you ready?
I am more than ready, yes.
Awesome. Let's get going. So we talk a lot on this podcast about inclusion and diversity, and we've had a range of guests that have planned mixed faith weddings, LGBTQ weddings, sustainable weddings. We've chatted to couples living with a disability, but we've not yet spoken about neurodiversity. So obviously we saw your Instagram, we love what you were talking about, and we were really intrigued. So can you tell us where you felt your business, your weddingology
That's it,
was needed?
It is like the longest name for a company known to man, and the fact that I'm talking about neurodiversity and neurodivergent things and neurotypical. Honestly, every time we do something on the website, spelling all the names right and the words right, it's driving us insane. We need like predictive texting. But yeah, the company itself was kind of born really from personal experiences. So I've been in the industry for it's about 23 years now, which makes me feel exceptionally old. And my sister and I have worked together for a really long time, and I'm we both did fashion and textile degrees. So I'm a fashion person, she's a textiles person, and we ended up doing sort of like wedding dresses and paper products, like wedding stationery and things like that. So that's what we've done for the last 23 years. But more recently, my daughter is 14, and probably for about the last 2 years or so, she recognised that she was struggling with certain things. And we weren't really sure what these certain things were, because she's quite a high achiever. She's very intelligent, does really well at school, but she just was struggling a little bit. And as we went down the pathway, to keep a long story very bit shorter, we realised it was neurodiverse traits, so autism, ADHD, possibly mixed with a bit of anxiety. Now, I've struggled from anxiety probably for about the last 20 years. So I live with an anxiety disorder. So I really recognised that in Maggie. But I come from an era where if you were a naughty child, you were a naughty child. There wasn't any kind of development things or anything like that back in the 70s and the 80s. So it was really new to me, this word of neurodiversity. And I kind of had to really learn on my feet quite quickly, like a big learning curve. So at this stage now, Maggie's gone through the first stages of having like an assessment done. I'm learning as I go along as to how it affects her and what she struggles with. But what it did do for me, Maggie and I had a conversation one morning, and she was like, you really should do something, Mum, to help couples that are neurodivergent. And I was like, oh my actual Lord, yes, of course, that's what I should be doing with my life. So that's how Your Wedingology actually began. So it was just a conversation, really, literally on a Sunday morning, lying in bed, chatting together about things. And then it's kind of gone from there, really. And I've also begun to realise that maybe a lot of my anxiety isn't absolute anxiety. I think I've got neurodiverse traits as well. I started a business probably back in January and launched it on Instagram to start off with, just to get a feel for what, the response would be, really. See if there was anything. And the response was amazing, and quite instant as well. And I've become to realise that maybe some of the traits that I've got, lots of other people have got as well. So that's been amazing too.
Yeah. I think we're all a little bit on a journey when it comes to learning about neurodiversity, Rachel. Like you, I grew up, my brother was diagnosed with Asperger's quite late in life, in his 40s. And I just remember when we were at school together, he was always the naughty child. He was always the kid that you found standing outside the classroom because he'd been disruptive. He could never engage in a lot of the learning. But nobody realised, as you say, back in the 70s and 80s, that was actually a spectrum condition and that he was neurodiverse. So I think everybody is coming to this quite late. You know, obviously people have been neurodiverse for time immemorial, but we as a society are only just starting to recognise neurodiversity, to make adjustments for people who have neurodiverse conditions. And also my daughter has Down syndrome and autism and anxiety. And I see the adjustments that are made for her as so very, very distinctly different from the non-existent things that were happening for my brother in the 70s. But I think because we are all on this learning journey, I think your weddingology is really interesting for wedding businesses and wedding suppliers. So what do you hope that they will learn from your weddingology to assist them in their day-to-day planning?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something to, like a caveat, something to kind of talk about before we can talk about what people can learn from it is to remember, like you're saying, that it is quite new. The neurodiversity word's quite new still. It's only kind of been around probably like 20 or 30 years in the sort of medical side of things. So the general public are getting more used to it. And I'm surprised at how many people do know what it means and they do understand it, if you know what I mean. But something to remember is that no one is an expert about it. Every single neurodivergent person you meet will be different to the next. Their needs, their requirements, what will make them happy will be completely different to the next. So don't kind of think that as a wedding supplier you need to be an expert in this subject, because you certainly don't. And on the Your Weddingology site there's going to be sort of our 10 golden rules, if you like, our little kind of reminders as to what you should be doing every day. And they're things like just listen more and talk more and learn and communicate, things that we probably do all of the time. But I think for a lot of us, when we're meeting couples, we're talking about what our product is, aren't we? And we're selling ourselves. And we're very good at doing that because we've been doing it for a long time. But I think that kind of try and be good to listen as well, and not just assume that they're going to want to just talk about the colours they're having in the wedding or the flowers or whatever. They might want to discuss how they feel even just coming to meet you to start off with, because that can be quite daunting for quite a lot of people. So I think that's kind of important, and we wanted to make sure that when the website launches, that is an actual quite big part of the website, to say that you do not need to be an expert at this. The fact that any company wants to join Your Weddingology is a thrill to me, and it also really shows that they want to make a bit of a difference, you know, in a small way or a big way or whatever they're trying to achieve, to help couples. They're trying to do a little bit better at doing it, which is such an amazing place, and it's a lovely place to sit as a person building a business as well, because all of the suppliers that have joined so far, and we're up to nearly 60 suppliers now that have actually joined us, which is a real thrill as well. They all come with their own personal stories, which is obviously brilliant because you've got life experiences, but they all absolutely want to help and make things a little bit better for couples. Did I answer your question? Because I feel like I went down a little bit of a...
No, you absolutely did.
No, definitely. And like you say, just not feeling like they have to be an expert, and listening and learning, which is key. And I think the listening is a huge one, actually, because there is a lot of noise when it comes to weddings, and there is a lot of, look at me, I do this, I can do that, and there is still a lack of how can we help, or what can we do for you, isn't there? I
think it's important, and what I'm going to try and do on the Instagram pages and obviously the websites and stuff is to make couples realise that we kind of want to make sure that they're going to have the best day ever. And most wedding companies sell their products on how they look, or, you know, and yes, we want to have companies on there that are doing a really lovely job on that side of it as well. But we want to have couples, we want to make couples feel really comfortable coming to see the suppliers or talking to the suppliers, or making sure couples are aware that we've all got our own little stories. And that's why it's kind of important to share mine on the website. I share mine, and I'm going to ask the suppliers to share theirs if they feel comfortable to do that too. because for me, setting up the business, it's been a real eye-opener. I'm kind of like, oh my God, everyone's got a really similar story. And, we're all doing, Ross and I were talking slightly earlier, Heidi, about what Instagram can make you feel like another business is doing. You can look at another business and think, oh my God, they're amazing. What the hell am I doing with my life? I need to not be doing this anymore because everyone else is doing amazingly. And I think couples can probably look at things and think, it's a certain, they've got to go into having, what their theme is for the wedding and what this. It's not all about that, is it? It's about maybe a couple
absolutely
having the day how they want to have it. And even if it's just the two of them or 300 people, as long as it's a day that they want. Yeah. And that's the suppliers that we're looking for, really, that kind of want to understand. I'm a little bit fascinated with people and with people's brains. And I do know that other people aren't all going to feel the same way as me. But I love better. There's nothing better than listening to people and finding out what makes them tick for me. So that in itself lends itself really well to setting up this sort of business for me.
Absolutely. And the suppliers you work with, is there sort of a common theme and questions they've asked, or in terms of sort of reasonable adjustments, is there sort of a few quick wins? I know it's a long-term commitment, but are there any little things that suppliers can do?
Yeah, I think there are some really good key things. I mean, like if we pick certain, so let's, for argument's sake, if you're a bridal boutique and someone's coming to visit you in the bridal boutique, then you might want to do either a video or something on your website showing people what the actual space looks like. So if you've got somebody that's kind of like, either have sensory issues or is just really quite nervous about meeting somebody new, having Instagram's brilliant because obviously people see people's faces. Like you say, Ross, people see your face nearly every day, and what a lovely face it is. So they kind of know who you are before they're going to meet you, and you're going to be there on the day, aren't you? So it's kind of important
absolutely to
get to know you. But even going to meet somebody or go to a new environment, especially if it's a bridal wear shop, because obviously it's quite a personable experience and it's very hands-on when you're serving a lady who's getting married, wants to try a wedding dress on or whatever. It's very hands-on anyway. So if you can do like either a pre-appointment so people can come to the space and just get to know the space before they feel like they've got to get dressed and try clothes on and go down that whole, which can bring a whole lot of different trigger issues with it to do with body image, and that's a whole different format that we could talk about as well. But that could be a really good thing to do for brides, so they can see what the space is like, understand where they're going to be sitting, understand what the lighting's like, whether you can turn the music off. If you could just ask these questions as well. So if they've found you on your Weddingology, the hope is that they'll understand that they can talk to you about anything and you're not going to judge or comment on anything weird or odd. But just so those are some sort of things that you could potentially do. And also bridal boutiques, for instance, use quite heavy scents, so to make their environment smell really lovely. But for some people that have got sensory issues, that could actually be quite triggering. So they're really just literally small things that you could change.
Sure.
And I mean, you could even perhaps think about having a specific appointment slot set that a neurodiverse couple or a person uses, if you know what I mean. So if you needed to make some changes like not having any flowers around or scent or music or whatever, but that was undoable every single day of the week, you could perhaps have a little set, like your Sunday afternoon, your quiet time in the boutique, that they know that it's just going to be them, and they can spend as much time, and also perhaps have the ability to leave when they need to without feeling awkward or uncomfortable. I've read something about a safe word that's not to do with 50 Shades of Grey, but so having a safe word with your couple, that just if they just need a bit of time out. My safe word at home is bananas. So if I'm having a little bit of a moment and I can't do anything else, and if someone asks me another question, I'm going to just collapse on the floor. Mine's bananas. And like my husband probably doesn't listen, he'll carry on, but my daughter will kind of know that I just need to lie down in the dark room just for 10 minutes and then I can kind of come back at it. But if you've got couples that are slightly overwhelmed by things, even just saying that on your website, it's just, and it's probably quite a light thing to talk about as well. So,
oh my goodness, there's so much there, Rachel.
I mean,
that's brilliant.
That is just one part of the wedding industry as well. I think every single supplier could look at what they do and just find little things that would just make a little bit of difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, encourage these. I mean, I've spoken to some suppliers that one of the ladies, she's desperate to get married, and she's been wanting to get married for years, but she's so overwhelmed by the whole thing, and she's felt like she can't do it. And she's actually joining us as one of the suppliers on the site. And I just thought, well, that's kind of sad, isn't it, really, that you feel like, that she's felt so overwhelmed by the planning process, and obviously perhaps dealing with all of these people that she keeps seeing popping up on reels doing all these mad things. She probably thinks, oh my God, I'm dealing with a bunch of people that will I just want to kind of create a bit of a safe space, basically, with your Weddinology, that people can feel like they haven't got to, try not to be overwhelmed by everything, do everything in small bites and that type of thing.
Yeah, no, those are absolutely fantastic tips. They really, really are. And I know from my perspective as somebody that touches people's heads a lot when they come in for a consultation,
absolutely,
I will always say, if it's too much, just let me know, and we can just have a 5-minute break, have a chat.
And there might be, it might be that that person wants to bring somebody with them that they feel really comfortable with, that they don't mind touching their head and guilty. It can be difficult when you're selling a product and you want it to look a certain way on somebody, because I know when I put veils on girls, if they attempt to do it themselves, they're like got it upside down, back to front, it's like too forward, too far back. And it can it can detract from trying to sell a product, obviously, and you don't want to do that either. But if you're there to kind of show hands on how to wear something, like you're really good at doing it on your Instagram page, you can put it on your own head, you can show where it's supposed to sit and that type of thing. So if they bring you felt, that you could put on your website that they could bring somebody with them if they feel more comfortable. And I know I was speaking to a makeup artist about the same sort of thing. Obviously, having to have your makeup applied by a makeup artist could be quite intimidating, or you could feel really uncomfortable about that. So she was talking about perhaps trying to do things in a different way, or perhaps showing somebody how to apply the makeup so they could do it themselves rather than having somebody touching their body, if you know what I mean. So
absolutely, and Ross and I have spoken a lot on the podcast about inclusivity and why everybody is entitled to feel seen and valued, and to have the best wedding planning experience they possibly can. And in some areas, I think there's a lot of information out there that to be had to sort of help suppliers when they're thinking about appropriate language, respecting people's pronouns, making their environments inclusive. I'm just interested to know, Rachel, if you've got a view on why perhaps the wedding industry has been so slow to recognise neurodiversity and ways of including people with neurodiverse conditions during the whole wedding planning thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ross and I touched on the whole pandemic thing and how that's actually affected our approach to mental health in general. And I think through all of the negative things, obviously, that we had to deal with through the pandemic, there's been some really positive things that have come out of the other end of it. And I think the fact that we're all, or a lot of people, are generally better at understanding mental health issues now, or at least talking about mental health issues, and the fact that through through the media in general, everything is becoming a lot more vocal. So I think as far as neurodiversity is concerned, I'm not sure that the wedding industry is that far behind. I think that, I'm surprised that the platform that we put on, the Your Weddinology, it does seem to be quite a unique platform at the moment. I'm sure there will be other platforms that will actually join as well. But I'm not sure that the wedding industry is that far behind. I think it's probably a term that we're all just getting used to using. and kind of understanding what it means. And also, I'm from a generation where the whole pronouns thing, it's quite, there's a lot to remember and think of and get right. And I feel a bit like with your weddingology thing about not being an expert. I think everyone has to remember that with everything, the whole gender thing and
it's so true.
It's not everybody is an expert at that. And I mean, I've got a teenage daughter, so I'm quite lucky in a way that she will pick me up on things, and she's part of the LGBTQ community as well. And what she says to me is, Mom, as long as you're trying to do it right, Mum, that's the important thing.
Totally.
If you're kind of going out of your way to be rude and horrible and not say the right things, that's a whole different thing. But if you're trying to do things right, and not just doing it to be jumping on the bandwagon, not to sort of just do it because it's the right thing to do. And interestingly, I've had quite a few suppliers talk to me about that, the fact that they do want to join your weddingology, but they want to make sure that it's a platform that's really true and not just being set up because it's the kind of thing to do now. So, and obviously I kind of go back to them and explain why I'm setting it up, and hopefully it doesn't come across like that, but it will certainly not for that reason. But I think that's quite good as well, that suppliers are asking me that question, because it means that they really do want to do something that's worthwhile doing, and not just because it's ticking that box.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Rachel, because we've had previous guests who've said very similar, that as long as you're trying, you're trying to educate yourself, you're trying to do the right thing. I mean, none
of us are experts at everything, are we?
Exactly.
I can maybe make a chocolate cake, but I'm not very good at doing baking. Oh, you know what I mean? That we can try everything, but I think with something like this, try not to be too scared to actually give it a go, because
I think that's it. I think you can get into a situation where people are fearful to say or do anything for fear of getting it wrong, and I think that's the wrong way to approach things. Definitely,
you're absolutely right. I mean, when we're set up in like new contact forms and things like that, the whole, whether you put bride and groom or bride and partner, or how you word things and everything, I think we try and do it right when we're contacting customers and things, but it would be very unintentional if we did upset somebody or offend somebody. But I think you can also be too scared to even try to do something.
Yeah.
Worried about that side of things.
Yeah.
Hopefully your weddingology definitely comes across as a platform that is really trying to make a difference. And it's not, we're not jumping on a bandwagon. And I'm on a big learning curve anyway. So the website itself, once we launch it, which will hopefully be in the next month or so, because we're just what we're doing with the website is making sure that we've got enough suppliers on it, so when brides and grooms do go on, they're really kind of inundated with people to see. So we don't want to just put it on, like launch it with 3 companies on there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, sure.
A while. And also, we've all just, well, I don't know about you, but I've just come through one of the busiest wedding seasons known to man. So, we are still waiting for quite a few people to send their details through, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even have time to answer emails sometimes, never mind, update websites or whatever. But so we're going to be launching that in the next month or so. And there'll be areas on there as well for suppliers, like suppliers tools areas. So there'll be suggestions of any literature that you might want to read. I'll be writing a blog about certain aspects of neurodiversity. So it might be an autism one, just to kind of give you an overall view of what the spectrums are of different things. And it'll all be written from my point of view. So it's not going to be from like a medical terms, or, it'll be from what I'm experiencing as I'm learning things through Maggie, my daughter.
Brilliant.
And I'm going to try, and the other side of it, we definitely want to try and keep it quite light. I don't want it to turn into something that's, people are planning the weddings.
Exactly. So it's still exciting, isn't it?
It's still exciting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right,
so what?
Sorry, Ross.
I was just going to say, it does sound like a fabulous project and something that's going to grow and grow probably. And once people start learning about it, it's just going to, the word of mouth and everything will be fantastic. Do you have sort of any starting points for couples who are neurodivergent, sort of if they're feeling that they don't know where to start or how to sort of look for a supplier that's going to take their needs into account? What would you suggest they start doing?
when they visit the website as well, there will be some top tips for couples on there as well. So things about sort of like, they're looking for a venue, talk to them about quiet spaces and all this type of thing. And also, interestingly, something that we've started to consider as well, which I hadn't thought about to start off with, but guests at weddings as well. So even if you're not a neurodiverse couple yourself, the chances are that you may well have guests, numerous guests, one guest, I don't know how many guests come in that might have different needs. And it's kind of easy to recognise it if someone's in a wheelchair and they need some sort of, they will be able to get into the venue. But if someone is on the autistic spectrum and maybe can't sit through the whole ceremony or just needs a different seat so they can actually leave if they need to, or so there will be top tips on the website for couples as well. Obviously what I'd like is for all of the suppliers to have their sort of Your Weddingology badge on their website, so couples can start to recognise that symbol as something that means that they can kind of take a breath and go, okay, I can talk to this person about anything that I need to. I mean, I know from my experiences of being in the wedding industry, you do get to know people quite well. Wedding dresses, I'm quite often with girls, and certainly in the last few years, I've still got some girls in my books from 2019, but obviously that's a whole different story. But I do get to know people quite well, and I always feel a bit, I don't know, people seem to tell me their life stories. I don't know what
I get that a lot. I think that's a huge compliment. I take it as a huge compliment if people share quite a lot with me. Enough. Yeah,
and you must be coming across as a very sort of welcoming and open person, Ross, and that's good in the industry that you're working in as well. So.
Cool. Absolutely. I'm just having a bit of a chuckle, Rachel, when you were saying sometimes people can't sit through a whole ceremony. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone to weddings with my daughter, who I've already said has got autism and anxiety, and we have sat on the steps outside the venue.
I mean, my daughter would want to be involved in these things so desperately, and but there would be an element where she would feel like she just needs to have that little safety net, that she knows that she can leave without looking like an idiot.
Absolutely.
And for some people, just knowing that is enough for them to feel a little bit calmer, isn't it? Knowing that there's an option there. You're
taking away that anxiety that you might get. You can instantly enjoy yourself then. You haven't got to feel like you've got to be stuck in an environment forever. And that would be something you could reflect through, for couples to think about guests, but also for suppliers to think about their clients as well. How could you just make their life feel a little bit less anxiety level, I suppose?
Do you think suppliers should start asking more questions, or have those sort of set questions like, we already do, does anyone have a food intolerance, or should we start asking that?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you do feel like sometimes you're kind of like, and do you like Hellman's mayonnaise, or would you like to? There's that many questions these poor couples have to take on. I suppose if we're all using the platforms that become like Instagram platforms, and God forbid if you're on TikTok or whatever you use if you're promoting yourselves and you're talking about these sort of issues, popping it on your website, and maybe having an area on your website, if you've got the ability to add something to your website, that people can just visit and see maybe what your story is, and say, look, this is my experience in life, and I'm kind of really open to talking about absolutely anything with you if you've got any concerns. So for the people that are neurodivergent and need that little extra help, they'll take a breath. But for people that are neurotypical and haven't got a clue what it feels like to need that sort of thing, they can just kind of ignore it. So you're not necessarily having to ask every single customer. And I suppose it depends on what you feel comfortable doing as well as a supplier. I mean, I've started with the other businesses that we run, we're obviously promoting each business in together, if you know what I mean. So we do lots of cross promotional things. So when I get my information from brides for wedding dresses, I'll talk to them I'll put a little footnote on my email to say, visit Your Weddingology if you'd like any further information about that. And I think that's quite a good lead into it, rather than to ask them specific things. And the interesting response to that is that lots of people have kind of just said, no thanks, I don't need any information. However, on the flip side of it, I get 3-page emails back from some brides that are just like, oh my God, I can talk to this woman about what I might need, if you know what I mean. So yeah, maybe finding a clever way of just popping it onto something so it's not too invasive for people and too much for you to deal with all of that as well. Because we, like you say, we do ask quite a lot of questions, don't we, when we're embarking on getting orders for this.
That's another great one, though. I feel like I should be taking notes, really, Rachel.
Yeah,
you know what? This is a podcast, so you can replay it.
I was just about to say, if only we recorded it to listen again. Yeah,
we do. Believe me. Yeah, when I'm in the gym, I quite often listen to my own voice.
Oh my God. You know, I will not be listening to this back because I don't want to hear myself with my kind of Birmingham accent that kind of also sounds a bit like the Queen every now and again, which is really weird mixture.
Rachel, I'm married to a Brummie. I love that accent. Married to a Brummie.
Oh, the best in the world.
Yeah. So you've touched on it, Rachel, but what sort of, you know, hopes and dreams have you got for your weddingology? Where do you hope this is going to go?
Kind of on a personal level, I've been in the industry for like 23 years, and I was looking for something. You're going to be shocked now, but I am in my 50s. I mean, take a deep intake of breath.
What?
Yeah, thank you, Ross. That was very unprompted as well. Well done, you.
Years of our lives.
We've just talked about the fact that this has been a really busy season. Yeah, I can kind of do an 80-hour week quite regularly through the wedding season. And I kind of am at the stage now where I'm kind of looking to do something a little bit different with my life. And so your weddingology has kind of come along at a really good time for me personally. So I kind of want it to grow into something where it's a bit of a recognised platform. So it brings awareness to suppliers and it brings awareness out to brides and grooms and kind of filters out from there. So maybe, you know, maybe it won't always just sit in the wedding industry. Who knows? You know, maybe there'll be platforms that come off it and do different things brilliantly. The more I read about it, the more I find out that companies, large and small, are kind of tuning into the fact that they need to be aware for users and for people that are employed there as well. Design companies are now forward thinking about how they can create spaces for neurodiverse people to enjoy and be part of, you know, like going shopping in a shopping precinct. My daughter's pretty triggering. She doesn't like doing that. So you're smiling again, Heidi, so you recognise that. And you know, things that a normal teenage girl would probably jump at doing, she does not want to go shopping with her friends. You know, she will go, but it's for an hour, and you know, she needs to feel like she can come home. But anyway, design companies are kind of starting to realise that there's a need to make areas in buildings and architecture. So it's quite vast. I mean, it can go on for ever, and it touches everyone's lives in some way or the other. And I think that more you talk about it and find out, there's probably family members that you've got and friends that you've got that have got neurodiverse traits, and that literally it's one of those topics that the more you talk about it, you know, it can kind of go on forever, basically. So what I would like it to be for a personal thing is something that I'm doing 100% of the time, and being able to develop properly, and kind of like I say, on a bit of a learning curve with it anyway. So, you know, the hopefully the business will grow as my knowledge grows.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's brilliant. And where can people find out about your weddingology?
At the moment, it's mostly on Instagram. Now I'm kind of promoting all of the businesses that are involved with it. And in turn, they should have some sort of badge or some sort of acknowledgement that they're part of your weddingology. We're going to be launching the website probably in the next month or so, although I do feel like I keep saying in the next month or so, but it will be very, very soon. And then we'll be doing some sort of links to wedding fairs and other collaborative works as well as we go forward.
Awesome.
Hopefully, brides and grooms will start to see, you know, the badges and start to kind of like link into what our wonderful family of suppliers can offer.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Heidi, anything else you'd like to ask this wonderful woman? Oh, we might have lost Heidi. Oh, Heidi's dropped off. Oh, bless her.
Oh dear.
Yeah, if you didn't know, to the listeners, Heidi has struggled today with her tech. So it's been a bit touch and go, and sadly she's gone. But I know I find that so useful. I know Heidi found it really useful, and it's got me thinking already about things I could just say or pop in an email just when I first meet them about where's most comfortable for a consultation or a chat, and things like that, and needing time out from their photo shoot and all little things like that has really got me.
I'm really thrilled that it's made you start thinking about things, and hopefully on the website there will be continual amounts of ideas and tips that come from me and also from other suppliers, and maybe from brides and grooms that can give us suggestions of what they would make their life easier too.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I know our listeners will find it super, super useful. So thanks again. Take care for now.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Of what they would make their life easier too.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I know our listeners will find it super, super useful. So thanks again. Take care for now.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye.
Bye.